How many of you have heard the term designer baby? Designer babies are babies whose genes have been genetically modified for the sake of producing a child with specific traits. I have been researching and learning about more and more about this topic since I was a sophomore in high school. Designer babies might very well be the future and cause a huge change in the world around us. Today, my goal is to inform you about how this is possible, experiments with designer babies, and how it will cause an even bigger class division than there is now. First, I will talk about how scientists can create designer babies. Scientists use an approach to gene editing called CRISPR-Cas9. It consists of two key molecules, the first one being an enzyme, Cas9. Cas9 acts as a pair of molecule scissors that can cut the two strands of DNA at a specific location in the genome so that bits of DNA can then be added or removed. The second key is a piece of RNA called guide RNA. The guide RNA is designed to find and bind to a specific sequence in the DNA. The guide RNA has RNA bases that are complementary to those of the target DNA sequence in the genome. This means that, at least in theory, the guide RNA will only bind to the target sequence and no other regions of the genome. The Cas9 then follows the guide RNA to the same location in the DNA sequence and makes a cut across both strands of the DNA. Secondly, I will talk about experiments performed involving designer babies. A set of twins was born in 2018, being the first ever designer babies. A scientist named Jian Ku used the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing tool on twin embryos to rewrite their individual CCR5 genes, creating a resistance to HIV. The scientist then went to prison for 3 years for conducting illegal medical practices. But before the scientist got caught, he conducted the same experiment again on those two twins' sibling born a year later. These two children, along with a third gene-edited child born a year later, represent the world's first gene-edited babies. 5 years on all three were reported living healthy and normal lives. Even though these children are healthy today, that does not take away from the fact that this experiment was very dangerous and it could have gone very wrong. Lastly, I will speak about how this will affect the world. Since this technology is very expensive, if gene editing to embryos did become available, it would only become available to the wealthy. Studies show that specifically a majority of Americans, 58%, believe that gene editing will very likely lead to increased inequality because it will only be available to the wealthy. This will cause the wealthy to be superhuman, while middle and lower classes will be normal, creating an even bigger division. Although this is nothing that we have to worry about right now, because based on concerns about ethics and safety, germline cell and embryo genome editing are currently illegal in the United States and many other countries. This means that as U.S. citizens, we don't have to worry about this happening in the near future, but that doesn't mean we have to worry about it farther in the future. To end off this speech, I would like to readdress all the topics once more. Designer babies are babies whose genes have been genetically modified for the sake of producing a child with specific traits. Scientists use an approach to gene editing called CRISPR-Cas9. A set of twins were born in 2018 that were the first ever designer babies, and this can affect the world in a very negative way. I hope that during this speech you understand everything that you need to know about designer babies.